For most people, 2014 Chandelier was the official introduction to Sia as an artist. For people more in tune with the pop world, you likely remember her on hits such as Titanium with David Guetta and Wild Ones with Flo Rida, years before Chandelier. But hardly anyone would call that an introduction to Sia the artist, more like an introduction to her voice. Following her voice on pop radio, she became one of the 2010s decade's most in-demand songwriters, writing for all the world's favorite pop stars: Beyonce, Britney, Rihanna, Shakira, Katy Perry, Christina Aguilera, and Kylie Minogue. She truly hit an all-time commercial high during that time period, and her songwriting career is just as known as her pop career at this point. But what if I told you there's a time none of it existed? A time where Sia cheerfully showed her face, wrote ballads and bangers that weren't always so easily predictable, and was actually a little more eccentric beyond just huge wigs. It seems like a time in another universe present day, but it happened, and me and many others were there. I was first introduced to Sia through the extremely quirky new wave video and song Buttons. It led me to discover her career in totality, which to my shock had been going on for decades at that point. She was initially a part of the duo 07 that began in the 90s and started to release albums throughout the 2000s. Before that, she was a part of a group called Crisp, where her solo career officially began in 1997 with her debut album Only C. Her 2001 album Healing is Difficult is where she would really begin to incorporate more straightforward pop-driven melodies. It's largely an R&B and soul-influenced album that sounds like it predicted what Amy Winehouse and Adele would come to do. Her album Color the Small Ones has one of the most genuinely heartbreaking songs Sia has ever written, Breathe Me, which doesn't feature Sia doing vocal acrobatics. It's delicate in every sense of the word. Her 2007 release, Some People Have Real Problems, is a little closer to the Sia we now know as far as upbeat pop numbers, but also sometimes revealing a sadder message, like on The Girl You Lost to Cocaine. Soon Will Be Found sounds like a Sia ballad with the instrumentation of early Adele. We Are Born, released in 2010, is the official prequel to her Chandelier career. You've Changed is a groovy new disco song. Hands down one of my favorite Sia songs ever, such a feel-good hook. Clap Your Hands ignites a similar spark. The album even has a synth pop cover of Madonna's Oh Father. Before Sia became a pop radio darling, she took some genuinely quirky artistic chances. There's a clear divide in Sia's career, pre-Chandelier and post-Chandelier. Chandelier might sound fairly ordinary now, but when it first came out, it was truly one of its kind. No one on pop radio sounded exactly like her. It's a fairly triumphant sounding song as well, with dark lyrics about alcoholism. And the music video with young Maddie Ziegler doing these outlandish interpretive dances genuinely captivated the public. What does she mean she's gonna swing from a chandelier? What does this odd video mean? Why doesn't she show her face? It felt like genuine and genius world building. But how can a fresh idea run itself into the ground? I think Chandelier is a genuinely good song, and deserves its place as one of the most iconic songs of the 2010s and amongst Sia's best work. Even though I consistently like Sia's work pre-Chandelier more, I undoubtedly think her best song comes post-Chandelier, and that song is Elastic Heart. This is the ultimate Sia song, arresting, moving, lyrically beautiful, the vocal samples that engross the beat and the nods to trap is everything. It still manages to sound relatively unique. I think it is pop perfection. While 1,000 Forms of Fear had a few other highlights such as Eye of the Needle and Dressed in Black, most of the album followed the Chandelier formula. But when it became really clear that Sia was intent on repeating herself, it was with her 2016 album This Is Acting, an album full of rejects, songs that Sia initially wrote for other artists but they didn't want them. And for at least half of the record, you can understand why. This is the point where Sia boxed herself in. Practically every song follows the Chandelier formula. Huge sweeping pounding ballads, personal or motivational lyrical motifs, and a chorus that takes it all the way up in her range. Sure works on some songs, like Bird Set Free, Alive, and Unstoppable are fine songs. Cheap Thrills is okay. I much prefer what is essentially the rewrite of Cheap Thrills from the deluxe called The Greatest. After the This Is Acting album cycle, it became clear in retrospect that everything from 1,000 Forms of Fear on would essentially be following a very similar formula. At this current point, it's like if you've heard one Sia song after Chandelier, you've basically heard them all. Her 2021 music album and movie that focuses on autism did not help her reputation at all. The movie and soundtrack were incredibly bad and a box office bomb. The soundtrack to the album features the song Cursed to Change, which is basically copy and pasted from a Pink album cut she wrote years prior. Literally the exact same melody and everything. It felt like she was running out of ideas. Her 2024 album Reasonable Woman See Sia at her artistic low point, with a batch of songs that sound extremely dated, unfinished, and most times below even her typical standards. The hooks sound uninspired. I think it's a prime example of phoning it in. It's interesting to have watched Sia's development and regression as an artist happen in real time.